but, here we go again.
He was disappointed.
Baby?
Feed.
Nope.
One for you. For the baby. Wow.
The story begins with our main character, Calvin Sims. Calvin is a vertically challenged criminal who has just been released from a federal prison. He's tough, he's tattooed, and he's definitely not looking to go legit anytime soon. As soon as he breathes that fresh air of freedom, his goofy partner in crime, Percy, picks him up with a big job already lined up. They've been hired by a crime boss named Mr. Walken to steal the famous Queen Diamond. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, we meet Daryl and Vanessa Edwards. Daryl is a super sweet guy who is basically obsessed with becoming a father. He's got the baby fever bad, but his wife Vanessa isn't exactly on the same page. She just got a huge promotion at her advertising firm and she's worried that a baby will totally derail her career. She's not even sure if Daryl is actually ready for the responsibility. Then, back to the heist. Calvin and Percy head to the jewelry store to snag the diamond. Calvin uses his small stature to his advantage, sneaking through the security system like a pro. Everything is going perfectly.
That's what I'm talking about, baby. Let me get up out of here, because I gotta bounce, right?
Has anyone seen my dog?
Until the alarms go off and the police show up out of nowhere. It turns into a high-stakes chase through a convenience store, and Calvin realizes he's about to get caught red-handed. In a moment of pure desperation, Calvin sees Vanessa shopping nearby and secretly drops the massive diamond into her open purse. He manages to evade the cops, but now the diamond is gone. After then, he meets up with a very stressed-out Percy. They decide they have to follow Vanessa home to get the rock back. They tail the couple to their suburban house and start eavesdropping on their conversation. Before then, Daryl is still trying to convince Vanessa to have a kid. While listening in, Percy gets a brilliant idea. Since Daryl is so desperate for a baby, why not just give him one? He suggests that Calvin should dress up as an infant and leave himself on their doorstep. Calvin is obviously not feeling it at first, but with $100,000 on the line, he eventually agrees to the plan. After a quick makeover, which involves a lot of shaving and some very tiny clothes, Percy drops Calvin off in a baby basket on the Edwards porch. He rings the doorbell and vanishes into the bushes.
Oh, dog! Get out of here before I feed you some chocolate! Wait, Muttley, wait, no!
When Daryl and Vanessa open the door, they find what looks like an abandoned, slightly grumpy-looking baby with a note asking them to take care of him.
To keep him?
Daryl is absolutely over the moon. He sees this as a test run for fatherhood and begs Vanessa to let the baby stay for the weekend. Vanessa is skeptical because, let's be real, Calvin has a very mature face, but Daryl is too blinded by excitement to notice. They bring him inside, and Calvin's nightmare officially begins. He's now trapped in a house with two people who think he's a helpless newborn. Then, things get even weirder. It's time for the first diaper change. Daryl and Vanessa are shocked by baby Calvin's physical development.
Whoa!
Whoa!
Noting he has some pretty adult-looking scars and even a tattoo. They just assume he's had a really rough life and decide he needs their love even more. Calvin, on the other hand, is just trying to find a way to get to Vanessa's purse without being noticed. On the other side of the house, there's one person who isn't buying any of it. Vanessa's dad, Pops. Pops is a cantankerous old guy who lives with them, and he immediately senses that something is off about this baby. He notices Calvin's 5 o'clock shadow and the way he glares at people.
Toss that monster out the window and keep moving. You little thing.
But every time Pops tries to warn the couple, they just think he's being a grumpy old man or going a little senile.
Just a cookie. Then they want to come to dinner. They're married to your daughter. No more my brother.
Meanwhile, Calvin is staying awake late at night to search for the diamond. He manages to get downstairs and calls Percy on the house phone to give him an update. He's complaining about the humiliation of the situation when suddenly, Pops walks in holding a shotgun. Pops is convinced he's caught an intruder, but before he can do anything, Daryl walks in and thinks his dad is just threatening the baby. After then, Daryl takes baby Calvin back to the nursery and gives him a heartfelt speech about how much he wants to be a good dad. He even starts a game of peek-a-boo. Calvin, who has zero patience for this, waits until Daryl's guard is down and knocks him out cold with a frying pan. He then drags Daryl's body to the couch to make it look like he just fell asleep while babysitting. Before then, Calvin finally finds the diamond in Vanessa's purse. He's about to make his escape when Vanessa walks back into the room because she forgot her bag. In the chaos, Calvin has to hide the diamond, and it ends up getting stashed in a diaper bag. Vanessa scolds Daryl for sleeping on the job, and the couple decides it's time for some family outings. Then, the family heads to a local park. Calvin is forced to hang out with actual toddlers, which he finds incredibly insulting. He ends up playing poker with the kids and winning all their lunch money. Meanwhile, Percy shows up at the park to collect the diamond. He tries to grab the diaper bag, but he grabs the wrong one and ends up being chased and beaten by a mob of angry moms. On the other side of the park, things get competitive. Their friend Greg, who is way too intense, challenges Daryl to a game of touch football. Greg starts playing way too rough, even bullying the kids. Calvin, tired of Greg's attitude, decides to take matters into his own hands. He uses his small size to deliver a very painful groin attack to Greg, finally shutting him down. After the park disaster, the group heads to a hockey game. Calvin is sitting on Daryl's lap, acting like a brat and taunting the players from the stands. He gets into a verbal spat with a player in the penalty box, which somehow escalates into a full-on brawl. The player actually breaks through the glass to get to them. The whole scene is pure chaos, and Daryl begins to feel like he's failing as a parent. Meanwhile, the real world is catching up to them. Mr. Walken, the crime boss, is getting impatient. He finds Percy and demands the diamond, or else. Percy, terrified, tries to buy more time, but Walken's henchmen are already starting to piece together where Calvin is hiding. The pressure is mounting, and Calvin knows he needs to get that diamond and get out fast. Then, back at the house, Daryl decides to throw a massive birthday party for Calvin to prove he's a great dad.
Why don't we throw him a birthday party?
He invites all their friends and their kids. It's a huge celebration, but Calvin is miserable. He's being forced to participate in baby games while his criminal past is literally knocking on the door. Pops is still lurking in the background, waiting for Calvin to slip up. Before then, Vanessa actually finds the diamond. However, instead of realizing it's stolen, she thinks it's the engagement ring Daryl had been promising to upgrade for years. She's touched by the gesture, and now the diamond is securely on her finger. This makes Calvin's job 10 times harder because he can't just snatch it from a bag anymore. After then, Calvin realizes the only way to get the diamond is to stay close to Vanessa. But Pops is on to him more than ever. Pops sets up a nanny cam, hidden inside a teddy bear to catch Calvin in the act. He's determined to show Daryl and Vanessa that their precious gift from God is actually a hardened criminal in a onesie. Meanwhile, the tone starts to shift a bit. Despite his intentions, Calvin starts to feel a weird connection to Daryl. He's never had a father figure or a stable family, and Daryl's genuine, if misguided, affection starts to get to him. He finds himself actually enjoying some of the attention, which confuses his criminal brain. On the other side of town, Percy is being grilled by the mob. He accidentally lets it slip that his partner has the diamond at the Edwards house. Walken and his goons, Bruno and Roscoe, decide it's time to pay a visit to the suburbs to reclaim their property. They don't care who gets in the way, and the situation is becoming incredibly dangerous for the unsuspecting Edwards family. Then, at the house, Pops finally corners Calvin while Daryl and Vanessa are out. It's a showdown between the old man and the little man. They end up in a hilarious scuffle.
Now, there's some real bad people after me, so you better just stay out of my way!
But when the couple returns, they find Pops holding the baby in a headlock. They are horrified and immediately decide that Pops has finally lost it, making arrangements to send him to a retirement home. After then, Calvin feels a pang of guilt seeing Pops get hauled away. He has the diamond now, and he could easily leave, but he realizes that the mob is on their way and the family that took him is in serious trouble. He looks at the footage on the nanny cam bear and sees just how much Daryl actually cares about him. Meanwhile, Walken's goons arrive at the house. They burst in and take Daryl and Vanessa hostage, demanding the diamond. Daryl is completely confused, having no idea what's going on. The goons are being aggressive, and it looks like things are going to end badly for the couple. Before then, Calvin has a choice. He can run away with the diamond and start a new life, or he can go back and save the only people who ever treated him like family. He realizes that even though the whole situation was a lie, the bond he felt with Daryl was the most real thing he's ever experienced. Then, Calvin decides to go back. He uses his knowledge of the house and his small size to set up a series of Home Alone-style traps for the gangsters. He's quick, he's stealthy, and he's determined to protect his parents. The goons don't stand a chance against a jewel thief who knows every nook and cranny of the building. On the other side of the room, Daryl is trying to be brave for Vanessa, but he's terrified. He suddenly sees baby Calvin swinging from the rafters and taking out the bad guys one by one. It's a surreal sight, and for the first time, the scales finally fall from Daryl's eyes. He realizes his son is actually a full-grown man. After then, the police arrive to cart away the criminals. Calvin hands over the diamond to the authorities, deciding to do the right thing for once. Daryl is given a massive reward for the recovery of the gem, which solves all their financial problems. The truth is out, and the baby ruse is officially over. Meanwhile, the atmosphere is bittersweet. Calvin prepares to leave, admitting to Daryl that he isn't a baby but thanking him for being the father he never had. Daryl, being the big-hearted guy he is, realizes he doesn't want to lose his new friend. He tells Calvin that he doesn't have to go. Then, the movie fast-forwards a bit. We see that Calvin has stayed on as a member of the extended family. He's no longer in a diaper, thank goodness, but he's still the same old Calvin. Pops is back from the retirement home, and he and Calvin have a weird, mutual respect for each other now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next recap. Subscribe.